All right, AFC North, Baltimore Ravens. They're over under. Obviously high, going to be one of the better teams in the NFL once again. Big question is going to be the hump. Can they get over it? But their over under is 11.5. So you've got the Ravens and Chiefs both at 11.5, and then the Bills, because of the schedule, at 12.5. The three powerhouses in the AFC. 11.5 here for Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, again, they're another one of those teams that's extremely good year on year. They're well coached. They're well run as a franchise, as an organization. They draft well. Like, this is a team that you would expect to be perennial contenders every single year. And then the question for them has been, can they win in the postseason? Can they beat those teams? Can they get over the hump? Are they like, the Bills? Are these teams being put into the category of chokers now? And even Lamar Jackson, like, his issue had been underperforming in the postseason. He has a good postseason performance. And then Mark Andrews, one of the most reliable, dependable, elite tight ends in the NFL, drops a pass in the end zone that would have changed the outcome of that game. So, I mean, that's the story for Baltimore again. They're probably going to run it back. They're probably going to be in the playoffs again. Can they win when it matters most?
They're going to kick things off, Baltimore, at Buffalo, Sunday Night Football. So you get the rematch from the divisional round last year. We talked about the Chiefs schedule a little bit earlier. The Ravens have to play Detroit in week 3 and then at Kansas City week 4. So they're challenged early on with 3 of the best teams in the league, Buffalo, Detroit, and Kansas City, and then Houston. So I got to add Houston there in week 5. And then I'm going to keep going. Then the Rams in week 6. That is a tough start for Baltimore before they hit their bye. And then almost everything after the bye. Of course, they have some other division games. They have Cincinnati twice and everything. They go to Green Bay in week 17, but I think it dies down a little bit. So I think if they can handle, much like the Chiefs, if they can handle that first 6 weeks or so of the season, then I think they'll be in a good spot going forward. And the same thing with Buffalo too. I mean, the goal is to get past these best teams. Even though Baltimore had that number 1 seed a couple of years ago, still lost in the AFC Championship to Kansas City. I think that's going to be crucial. It'll be a little bit more difficult for them with the North, with some of their schedules. They're the teams that they have to play in Cincinnati twice. Pittsburgh always gives them at least one good game. So I think it'll be challenging, but that's a huge key for, I think, Baltimore making their run. So handling the early season and then obviously taking advantage of home field in the playoffs if you have it. The other part about Baltimore, the people aren't picking them blindly through the playoffs. The last couple of years, they hit this stretch where it's like, hey, they're kind of the best team right now. When you throw good teams at them, they crush them. I mean, more than the Chiefs, more than the Bills. When they go up against good teams, that run that they had in 2023, where they destroyed the 49ers and they were destroying the Dolphins, all these teams, it's like, this is a great game this week, and Baltimore just killed them. They can do that. They're capable. But now it's about putting it all together once you get into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, and I think they're a good team at peaking. I mean, we're going to see a few teams this year, I think, because of the way those schedules all seem to be brutal early. You're going to see a couple of teams that are like 2-4, 2-5, who then go on a run and look like the best team in the NFL in December, right? Who still make the playoffs, like the kind of what Cincinnati tried to do last year. But I think you're going to see a couple of these teams where we're like in panic stations in week 3, week 4, because they're 1-2, 1-3, and then they just put together a string of wins where they look like an elite playoff team and look as good as anybody. And Baltimore has done that before, where they've gone on these late runs and looked like the best team in the league late in the year.
Remember, I think it was 2022. It felt like the schedule was front loaded with great matchups, but also with bad, like previous year's bad teams facing each other. And we were sitting there in week 6 and like everybody was 3-3. And it's like, why do the Chiefs have the same record as the Giants? I forget specifically what it was, but we might be headed for that again, where Detroit or Baltimore or Kansas City, some of these powerhouse type of teams are sitting there at 500 or a game under 500 a few weeks into the season. I have to see if the schedule works the other way, if like the Browns are going to be sitting there at 4-2 or whatever it may be, or the Giants are 4-2 again. And it's going to might feel crazy the first few weeks of the season. I don't know if this was by design again, but there's a lot of big matchups early in the season. And so Baltimore, I think that's a big part of their schedule here. But the only thing that I think challenges them is I'm going to be high on Cincinnati again this year. I don't think they can be as bad as they were last year defensively. I think they'll be as good offensively, and then defensively, and just the one-off plays, missed field goals and botched snaps and whatever. I think some of those will revert back. So I think Cincinnati has a chance to challenge Baltimore. I think that's the one thing that might challenge them as far as this 11.5 goes.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, the division looks a bit weaker this year though than it's been the last couple of years, where it's looked like a good division on paper heading into the year. Pittsburgh is an unknown because of the Rodgers thing still being out there, but Cleveland with their four-way battle at quarterback, none of whom are any good on paper, that's a worry. Like, you would wonder how the Browns can be a good team this season. Whereas Cincinnati should be better than a year ago. Pittsburgh might be worse. Cleveland might be worse. Suddenly this division, like, Baltimore's looking like the clear best team who maybe gets challenged by Cincinnati. Whereas previously you're like, man, all four teams in this division look like they could be good.
All right, 11.5 here for Baltimore. Where are you going to go with it? By the way, Cynthia has them with the top win projection in the AFC at 11.6, so slightly over here.
Yeah, I can give them 12 wins. I'll go over.
I'll do the same for Baltimore.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.